On the pod today is Congresswoman-elect Ilhan Omar. She will be the U.S. representative from Minnesota's 5th Congressional District. Congresswoman, thank you so much. Congresswoman-elect, I already got it wrong. Thank you so much for joining the show.
No, you got it just right. That's fine. It'll be Congresswoman in just, few days. But thank you so much for having me, and hello to your listeners.
Well, they are thrilled that we had you. I can assure you of that. First question. One, congrats on winning. How does it feel now that the election's a few weeks away? You've gotten a few weeks of orientation under your belt, and you're closer to getting sworn in. What has this experience been like for you?
This experience really has been a great experience. It's been a long journey, an overwhelming journey, and I'm really honored to have the opportunity to serve the people of the 5th and make good trouble in Washington.
Yeah. What does good trouble mean to you?
Good trouble means that we are finally going to have people who are really awakened from the complacency of their day-to-day life. We're going to have folks who are grounded in their communities. And good trouble means shaking things up in Washington and having our processes and our policies be representative and reflective of everyday folk.
That's right. And if you're a listener right now and you want to learn more about some good trouble, Google John Lewis and good trouble, and you will learn a whole lot of very important history. Which
is really interesting that I get to serve with someone who, right, is just such a historic figure. It's one of those really bizarre things to walk into Congress for training and run into a living icon that you will soon to call a colleague.
Allow me to geek out on that for a second. What is it like to walk into a room and to see John Lewis there and he's your colleague? That must be just mind-boggling.
We were at one of those, welcoming dinners, and I was sitting, and then I saw him walk in, and I don't know what got into me, but I got up and rushed towards him, and there were all these people. And as I was getting closer, I started getting choked up, and I said to him, sir, my name is Ilhan Omar, and I'm a member-elect from Minnesota, and I'm like, sir, I read about you in middle school, and now I get to serve with you. And he laughed and he said, well, I'm excited that you get to serve with us. Welcome.
That is amazing.
And it is one of those really surreal moments that no one ever prepares you for.
I can't even imagine. So, when you think about what you hope that House Democrats can accomplish in the first 100 days, what kind of priorities are you identifying for yourself and for your district? I've noticed that you and some of the more progressive new members are already pushing leadership in very interesting ways to adopt a more progressive agenda. Is the House Freedom Caucus a helpful model to follow in that regard?
Oh, no. They really were... I think the antithesis to what we are about. They came to obstruct, and we are coming to rebuild. And so for us, we're really focused on pushing for legislation that restores hope in the democratic process, one that creates a democracy we can believe in, one that is transparent and accountable to the people. And second, I think for us, the Progressive Caucus and the members of the Progressive Caucus, we are interested in making sure that people recognize that we are the soul and the conscience of the American electorate. In a time where our country really is at a dangerous crossroads, just to resist, they're also sending us to insist on a set of values to make sure that we take this opportunity to get Medicare for all for folks, to make sure that people have access to education, that we are freeing students from the shackles of debt, that we have investment in infrastructure that allows for us to move towards investing in 21st century infrastructure, things like expanding broadband, and making sure that we have folks like myself who don't have blind spots when it comes to what a humane immigration system looks like, are in the forefront fighting for that, and reminding folks here in the United States the ideals that this country was formed under, to make sure that we are a country that is inclusive, welcoming, and one that guarantees justice for all of its citizens.
Over the weekend and last week, we learned a lot about the vast web of crimes committed by Trump and his cronies. Over the weekend, House Judiciary Committee ranking member Jerry Nadler raised the prospect of impeachment. Congressman Adam Schiff said that the day Trump leaves office, he could be arrested, which was stark. Do you think that the House should start the impeachment process? Is that the right use of time and priorities?
So this weekend was really an eye-opening, I think, for a lot of people. And I don't even think that most people comprehend how detrimental some of the things that came to light were. I think it will be important for us to move as fast as we can once we have all of the facts on the table. I do agree with Congressman Schiff that it is going to be necessary for us to be that check and to provide the balance as members of Congress to this presidency and this administration that really isn't one that is serving the interest of the American people.
So is that a TBD on impeachment, you think? That's an okay answer. There's a lot to learn.
So I have said long before we even had the full details that an impeachment was quite possible for us, because you could see where we were headed. And I think we are getting closer every single day to really believing that process needs to start, and we need to make sure that we are holding the interest of the American people and getting this president who is corrupt in so many ways to not be the face and the leader of our nation.
Yeah. Speaking of ways we would like him to no longer be the face of our nation, I want to get back to your personal story for a minute, because, as a young girl, listeners might not know that you and your family fled the Somali civil war and spent, I believe, 4 years in a refugee camp in Kenya before arriving in the U.S. in 1995. What did that experience teach you about the way the U.S. treats immigrants and refugees, and how would you want to change U.S. refugee policy?
So, when we were coming to this country, and I think it's a little known fact, maybe it's something that now everybody is paying attention to because I talk about it so much. But the United States, when folks are going through the process of relocating here as refugees, as part of that process, there are orientations that take place. And in the orientations, there are videos that people get to watch about the life that they are to expect once they arrive here. And as part of that, there is, stories and images of happy families at dinner tables where there is an abundance of food, images of happy young children running off to their school buses, images of, beautiful homes, white picket fences, images of a country where people are happy and are leading a life that is prosperous. And so when you are in these orientations and in the process of leaving, within days to come to the U.S., you are really looking forward to, right, like life as you see it on that screen. Right. And when we first landed, I remember seeing, panhandlers on the side of the streets, there being trash everywhere and graffiti on the side of the walls. And I remember turning to my father and saying, well, this doesn't look like the America you promised. And, my dad's natural response was, you just need to hold on. We will get to our America. And for me, that surge of that America that I saw has been part of the driving force in my activism in trying to make sure that the current reality that people live in, where we are seeing young children worried about where their next meals are going to come from more than I was worried about it in that refugee camp, or living in an America where there are homeless people sleeping on the side of the streets, or in America where there are people who are afraid to seek medical attention because they're afraid to file for bankruptcy. An America where you can access the justice system equally because you are born with a different race or a different gender or into a different class. That isn't the America that I heard about. That wasn't the America that I watched. And so I want to make sure that I am fighting for the America that I believe in and the America that I know we all deserve. And that is one, right, that has justice within our criminal justice system. It is one that recognizes that, housing is a human right, one that guarantees health care to all of its people, one that makes sure that education isn't only accessible to the privileged few, and it isn't supposed to be a step back, it's supposed to be a step forward. And an America where folks who are living in dangerous parts, hopeless parts of the world, look to know that there is hope there. And that is the America that I heard about, the America I dreamed about, and the America that I am going to fight to make sure it's accessible to every single person.
When you talk to members of the Somali American community in the U.S. or abroad, and you have to explain to them how the President of the United States could implement a Muslim ban, a ban of all religions, or you have to explain to them why you need to change the rules to be able to express your religion appropriately on the House floor. Like, what is the reaction to that? That sort of cruelty from our leadership?
It's disbelief. There, like I said, we do a really great job here in the United States exporting American exceptionalism to every part of the world, and we fall short of living it out ourselves here in the U.S. Oftentimes, the messages I get it's to say, what is happening? I don't understand. How is it in the United States, where there is supposed to be no religious tests to serve in public office, that you have to have this rule change in order for you to serve? People don't recognize the America that we are talking about when they see us have conversations about black and brown bodies who are getting shot by the police. The people are confused when they hear us fighting for wage theft, against wage theft, or fighting to make sure that there is paid sick and safe time. People are confused when they hear about gender pay gap in the United States. Oftentimes, my friends across the world, or people who are connected to me through social media, who are living in different parts of the world, oftentimes are confused about the things that I advocate for, because they don't associate those challenges with the United States. People imagine that here in the U.S., regardless of what race you are, what class you were born in, what gender you are, what faith you might believe in, that you have equal rights. And so when they hear that there is still struggle and to have that equality realized by everyone, that we are talking about collective liberation for everyone. People oftentimes ask, like, what country are you living in, Ilhan? It doesn't make any sense. How is this part of your agenda, that you're not just talking about, right, like taxes and the economy and
Right.
the natural things that people think in that we should be talking about here? They don't understand the injustices that exist, socially, racially, economically, environmentally. And so for people, it is important to have someone like myself who has the ability to bring an outsider lens to the conversation, to say, look, for so many years, to everyone around the world, this is who we said we were. Now it's the time for us to actually be that person, that nation, and that society.
One interesting recent position you've expressed support for is the boycott, divestment, and sanctions against Israel, or BDS movement. And so for those listening, BDS essentially says we should boycott Israeli businesses and travel until it withdraws from the West Bank, Gaza, and the Golan Heights, which are considered occupied territories by the United Nations, provide equal rights for Arab Palestinian citizens of Israel, and allow Palestinian refugees the right to return. Can you talk about just why you believe the BDS movement is important, or what you might say to those who believe it is inherently anti-Semitic because it sort of presupposes solutions to what are considered final status issues?
So I am a believer of there never being peace without justice. And in the Middle East, we can never really look to have a process of peace if we are not advocating for justice and equal status for everyone. We think of it as the only democracy in the Middle East, and as such, we have to make sure that we're holding it to that standard. We need to make sure that it is a country that it doesn't have human rights violations, that it is a country that really has justice extended to everyone, that there is equality for everyone. And for me, it is important in recognizing that we have a state for Israel and a state for Palestinians, to make sure that the advocacy that needs to go into that is one that also steers up pressure to make sure that we have that process taking place. You can't only have discussions with the conversation beginning and saying, this is a country that is furthering democracy, and so we can't criticize it. We can't, talk about it. This is off limits, and talk about how in the United States we are allied with this particular country, without talking about how our allieships also mean that we hold people accountable, that we use our opportunity for allyship to bring about change. And for me, what the PDS movement does is that it awakens people from this complacency of thinking everything is fine. It allows for there to be a discussion about the injustices that are happening right now. It allows for a conversation to take place that says everybody in that region deserves the right to self-determination. Everybody in that region deserves for their babies and their children to live a safe and prosperous life, and that there is not one human life that is worth more than the other. And there are lots of wrongs that we've looked the other way for so many years. And it is time for us to balance out power and to make sure that there is justice for both of those communities.
And so do you think that is sort of the end goal of the BDS movement to pressure Israel back into negotiations on a two-state solution, or is it different than that?
I think the goal, the way that I see it, is to make sure that there is light that is shed on the injustices that are taking place, and to make sure that there isn't an opportunity for conversations to continuously get shut down. It is one that I believe allows for power to shift, so that there is an ability for folks to feel like they can express themselves. I mean, oftentimes when we are having a discussion about this region, there is one side of the conversation that is allowed. And anytime you are talking about Palestinians, you have to, in the context of what is permissible in the conversation around what the Israeli administration decides is permissible. And what the PDS movement does is it says we can have a counter conversation, that it is okay for us to hold Israel and its administration accountable for the injustices that are taking place. It is okay for us to leverage, economic and social pressures onto Israel to make sure that we are able to bring them to the table, not as the head of that table, but as a member of that table. And I think for me it is important to always make sure that we are siding with oppressed people, and recognizing that when you are fighting for liberation, that the tactics that you use, everybody might not agree with it, and it might not seem wise or strategic to everyone, but it is one that allows for you to utilize every voice, every ability, every power, every right that you have, so that you can fully recognize your humanity and your power.
Well, Congresswoman-elect, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. Congratulations on your election. It is exciting to see this dynamic, savvy, young, dare I say cool, group of individuals going to Congress to support democratic values. So thank you again for everything you're doing, and best of luck.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited about this new majority. We're going to throw it down.